Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, we're going to talk about the eclipses again because there's a new article that was published on Israel 365 yesterday, Sunday. So I don't do any work on Sundays, of course. And so I'm just finding this right now. This was written by Eliyahu Berkowitz. He's the one that I interviewed at the very beginning when I started up my friendship with Israel 365. If you want to watch that interview, I'll put the link for it in the description box below. I've also interviewed Eli Michel. He's so Adam is like a journalist for Israel 365. Eli, he works for Israel 365. He's a content manager and he does other things. He's also a rabbi that immigrated from the U.S. to Israel, or in other words, he made Aliyah. And I've talked to him a couple times. And then Israel 365, they're the ones that set me up with Rabbi Gerfine, and I talk to Rabbi Gerfine once a month. And yeah, I have this chance to ask a rabbi that lives in Jerusalem anything that I want to know about Judaism, and we've gained a wealth of knowledge. So anyway, before I get into this article, I would encourage you to check out those interviews. Also, if you can, support Israel 365. In the description box of each video, I have these charities that I support, 1, 2, 3. And then they also have this book that they sell called 75 Hebrew Words You Need to Understand the Bible. And they gave me a copy of that. So if you want to buy that, this is it. It's a really interesting book. They have the whole Hebrew alphabet at the beginning, so you can look at it. And then alphabetically, they have the 75 words. And there's this... I have this code right here, Jared25. Oh, sorry, no, that's for Artza. Sorry. Christian, all uppercase letters, $10 off if you buy the book through the link that I have here and put in that code. And then there's the charities. They have this general charity to help those in need as a result of this war. There's a lot of people that have been displaced from their homes, having to leave these like border towns because of the dangerous situation there. So you can do that. They're still doing this charity for Meir Tamari, a 32-year-old husband and father of 2, ages 1 and 2.5, that was killed by a terrorist and left behind his wife and his 2 kids. And then also they have a tree project where they're planting all these trees, and you can help that. So if you can, I would encourage you to donate to them. Israel 365 has done so much for me, and I appreciate them. I know that you do too. They're a great organization, and so if you can, just go to the description box and do one of these 4 things. Okay, so this is interesting because I always like to go to Israel 365 because it's one of the few places you can go to see a Jewish perspective of the last days and signs of the times. They watch a lot of the same things that you and I do. In fact, some of the things we find out come exclusively through Israel 365. They're the only news outlet any news outlet that I know of that covers as many of the signs as they do. Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and read through this because I was just kind of skimming through this and I saw a lot of interesting things from their perspective. Again, the eclipses, I think that they are huge. They're huge because they're getting the attention of everybody. They're getting the attention of Christians across the world. They're getting the attention of us, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Remember, these eclipses, in my mind, are specifically for us as members of the church. They're signs for the world, and people are picking up on that. But as Latter-day Saints, we should really take note because these eclipses go over some of our most sacred sites, such as the future New Jerusalem in Independence, Missouri, Adamon-Diamond, Far West, which used to be church headquarters. We have the Sacred Grove. We have Fayette, the first headquarters of the church and where the church was established. We also have the Kirtland Temple. So it really seems like it's a specific message for us. And then let me just remind you, in Utah, we had the eclipse that was in October. Let me turn on temples. It went in the only path that it could to miss the maximum number of temples in Utah. It only went over one temple that was in operation, which was the Monticello, Utah temple right here. The Manti temple at the time of the eclipse was under renovation. So I don't think it was likely that it would take this path. There's temples all over Utah, as you can see. And so to miss all of them, except for this one that's in operation, that's pretty unlikely. And then, of course, there's always the fact that when you take these three eclipses together, they form the letter A, or in Paleo Hebrew, the letter Aleph, not the modern block script, but the Paleo Hebrew script, which is also Phoenician. You have Aleph over here. And I haven't imported the KML files for the eclipses that go over the Red Sea, but later on, there's going to be an X over the Red Sea, and an X in Paleo Hebrew is the letter Tav. So you have the first letter and the last letter, so it's like Alpha and Omega, Aleph and Tav, A and Z, so that kind of thing, right? The Lord is Alpha and Omega, Aleph and Tav. Okay, so anyway, and then of course there's the Ninevehs and the Salems, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So let's just get into this article. On April 8th, a total solar eclipse will traverse the continental U.S., passing from the southwest California border with Mexico and cross to the northwestern United States. And it's important to note that April 8th is the day after conference. So that's like another, what I feel is another church-specific sign, in addition to all these locations that that the eclipse is going to go over that's unique to our church. Okay, while skeptics claim this astronomical phenomenon has no spiritual significance, others note that the last eclipse that traversed the United States ushered in a catastrophic hurricane season, the global COVID pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the horrific Hamas attack on Israel. Now, he's referring to the 2017 eclipse, although he has done an article about the eclipse October of 2023. And the interesting thing about that eclipse, the one in October, is that it was, let me just turn these off so it's clear which one I'm talking about. So October 2023, it was on the 14th of October that this eclipse happened. So what we had was, first we had General Conference. It was on the 31st of September and the 1st of October. 7 days later, you have the attack on Israel, October 7th. And then 7 days after that is when you had this eclipse. 7. After the attack, after the war started, we had this eclipse that went through Utah, missed all the temples except for Monticello Utah Temple. I don't think that that's coincidence. I don't. And neither does Adam. He's not even a member of the church. He has no knowledge really of these LDS specific signs, but he looked at this eclipse that went over the United States and associated it with the October 7th attacks. And I think that he was right to do so. Okay, but anyway, this one that he was just talking about was the 2017 eclipse, COVID, war in Ukraine, Hamas attack, Okay, continuing. Such a series of events has led many to take note of the upcoming eclipse, which takes place on the first day of Nisan, the first month of the biblical calendar that also marks the beginning of the redemption from Egypt. Now, this is important, redemption from Egypt. In Judaism, whenever they're talking about redemption, they talk about stories like this, the redemption from Egypt, but they have this concept of the final redemption, which is when Messiah comes and he initiates the Messianic age, or the way that we would view it, the second coming and the millennium. So if they're thinking about this, we have this eclipse on the 1st of Nisan, and they commemorate the beginning of the redemption from Egypt. There may be something to that. This may be a sign for the Jews that they would understand. Like I said, I think the Lord is working with many different groups, religions, to prepare them for this big change. Let me pull up hebcal.com, and they have the Hebrew calendar here. So let's go down to April, and here we go. Here's the... Oh, okay. When he says the 1st of Nisan, he's talking about how it starts on the 8th at sundown. So most of the day is the last day of the month of Adar 2, because it was a Hebrew leap year where they added an additional month, Adar 2. There's Adar 1 and Adar 2. But at sundown on the 8th, that's when the first of Nisan begins. Okay, so that is interesting to note. Now, remember, gosh, every single time. Sorry, I just wanted to do this video. It seemed pretty simple, but a lot of times I get talking about things, then I remember stuff. Okay, let's go to my spreadsheets. I have under Judaism 12 months. I have this graphic that Rabbi Gerfein gave me. So here are the Hebrew months, okay, of the year. So you can see Nisan is the first month. It's numbered the first month, and it's the month that corresponds with Judah, the tribe that Christ is from. That by itself is kind of significant that on the first of Nisan this year, the month that corresponds with Judah, the tribe that Christ is from, we're going to have this eclipse. I think that's interesting. So anyway, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the way that they do it on their calendar is in the 7th month. That's when they change the date. That's when their New Year's is, the way that we think of New Year's, where we go from one year to the other and we change it from, 2023 to 2024. That's what they do on the 1st of Tishri, the 7th month. That's the month that corresponds with Ephraim. And then they have two other New Year's. Excuse me. Elul is the month that you have the New Year for the animal. And then Shavat is the month that they have the New Year for the tree. So they have 4 New Years. The one that we consider New Year's would happen in the 7th month, Tishri. That's where they change the calendar. But the numbering of the months begins with Nisan. And so that's what we're going to be seeing. Okay. The total eclipse, the total eclipse will pass over Mexico from the Pacific Ocean at around 11:07, interesting numbers, a.m. Pacific time, and continue over the United States, starting in the southwest and moving northeast until it passes over the shore of the northeast U.S. in northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. The eclipse will exit continental North America on the Atlantic coast of Newfoundland, Canada, at 5:16 p.m. NDT. Let's look at the eclipse on Google Earth so we can picture it. Let me take off 2017 and 2023. So here it is. So it starts over here, and then it comes up through here, and then goes over Canada, and then into the Atlantic. Okay. Excuse me. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, thereby obscuring the image of the sun for a viewer on Earth. A total solar eclipse occurs when the moon's apparent diameter, as seen from Earth, is larger than the sun's, blocking all direct light and turning day into darkness. As it happens, the moon will make the month's closest approach to Earth. Let's see what. As it happens, the moon will make the month's closest approach to Earth just 223,000 miles one day before the total solar eclipse, thereby appearing its largest on the day it crosses between the Earth and the sun. Total eclipses occur only in a narrow path across the Earth's surface, with a partial solar eclipse visible over a surrounding region thousands of miles wide. Yeah, so that's what this is. This is the path of totality. So if you're within this path, you would experience the total eclipse. If you go outside of this path, you would still see it, but it would appear you wouldn't get the full effect. You wouldn't be in the direct shadow of the moon. Okay. It will be the first solar eclipse visible in the continental U.S. since August 21st, 2017, and the only total solar eclipse in the 21st century where the totality will be visible in Mexico, the United States, and Canada. It will also be the last total solar eclipse visible in the contiguous United States for the next 2 decades until August 23rd, 2044. Now, the one thing I would say about that, again, we just talked about the fact that there was the eclipse in October, although I have to remind myself, let me go to my spreadsheet called Signs, Solar, here we go, Eclipses. So what I did with this spreadsheet is I took all these locations, all 7 headquarters of the church, as well as important cities that I think are important. or locations: St. George, Adamandayaman, Sacred Grove, Washington, D.C., New York, Rome, Jerusalem, and I still haven't done Carthage yet. But I've put all the eclipses on here, and let me just double check. Oh, I don't have it on here because it didn't go over any of these locations. Let me look at this. Let's see. October 14, 2023 eclipse. I wonder if that was an annular. Oh yeah, it was. That was an annular eclipse. So this eclipse that went over Utah, it was not a total solar eclipse because the Earth was, or the moon was further away in its orbit from the Earth, and so you didn't get the full effect like you would with a total eclipse where the moon is closer. So I think that's what he meant when he said that was like the last eclipse was in 2017. It was the last total solar eclipse. Okay. And then just so you know, so here we go. Over these locations, we have this one that's happening this year on April 8th. And then what I have, and it's not for, again, this is for these locations. The next one that we have for these locations is going to be 2045 for Salt Lake City. It'll happen on the 12th of August, 2045. And you'll notice that you don't really see very many times where you have eclipses that go over like a bunch of different locations. You have this one back in 1925, 1 year after President Nelson was born. It went over the Sacred Grove, Fayette, New York City. There was an annular eclipse that went over Jerusalem in 1933. And then we go all this time without any eclipses, total or annular, over any of these locations. And then we have a big one that goes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations in 1994. This was the year that President Benson passed away. And other notable things happened then as well. It went over Independence, Missouri, Kirtland, Ohio, Hiram, Ohio, Sacred Grove, and Fayette, New York. And then we have 2017, Independence, Far West, Adamandayaman. The one that's coming up, Kirtland, Hiram, Sacred Grove, Fayette. And then after that, you don't really see anything like this. Here you have a couple annular eclipses, one in 2093, one in 2111, that go over 3 locations. Here's one in 2154. It's also an annular. So we don't see anything like what we're seeing this year and in 2017, which were both total eclipses. That's why this really stands out. This isn't going to happen again. At least it's not going to happen between now and 2199. After that, I don't know when the next time is going to be. So that's why I think we're in a interesting window of time right now because of these total solar eclipses that go over all these church sites. There's nothing else like it. The only other one that's kind of comparable would be 1925, the year after, just a few months after President Nelson was born. You see? So, okay. Let's go back to this. Excuse me. Whereas the path of the 2017 eclipse crossed from the Pacific Northwest to southern Florida, the upcoming solar eclipse will begin transversing the continent from the southwest of the U.S. and end in the northeast. The paths of the two eclipses form a transcontinental X. In a strange coincidence, the only spot in the path of both eclipses receiving a double dose of this modern plague of darkness, and the point of the longest duration for both eclipses, is a particular part of southern Illinois, known appropriately enough as Little Egypt. The Egyptian connection is so strong that there are several cities in the area named for ancient Egyptian places like Karnak, Cairo, and Thebes. Okay, that's interesting. I knew about Little Egypt. A lot of people will bring that up, and I've known that like ever since the beginning. I haven't really found too much significance in that. I mean, it is significant. It's like the United States is like the modern descendant of Egypt and Rome and Babylon and all that stuff. So it kind of is interesting. If we zoom in here, The closest like city is Carbondale right here, but yeah, they intersect right here in southern Illinois. Interestingly, I do find this interesting. The intersection point is in Jackson County, Illinois, right? Not Jackson County, Missouri, but Jackson County, Illinois, which is kind of interesting. But okay. The 2017 eclipse was also known as the 7 Salem eclipse because the path of that eclipse crossed over 7 U.S. locations named Salem. Now this, I do think it's significant. I do take a little issue with the way that this is framed, because if we're talking about the path of totality, I'll just show you what I mean. So here we have, okay, so let's just go with what he says here. So Salem, Oregon. Okay, here we go. Salem, Oregon's right there. Salem, Idaho. Here's Salem, Idaho over here by Rexburg. Salem, Wyoming. Now, in Wyoming, there is not a town called Salem. There may have been at one time. There is Salem Cemetery down here, but it's not within the path of totality. It comes, relatively close. If we look at the entire state, the path comes close to Salem Cemetery. But anyway, so I don't know. I feel like that one's a little bit of a stretch. Salem, Nebraska, which is right here, basically in between Kansas City and Omaha. Salem, Missouri, which, there is a Salem, Missouri, but it's not in the path of totality. But again, it's close. Salem, Kentucky, and here it is right here. And then Salem, South Carolina, right here. So I don't know why, and I'm not saying that Adam came up with this. This seems to be like the agreed upon set of towns that are Salem. I don't know who initially, made this discovery, but I think he's just going off of that. I don't know why they included Salem, Missouri, but not Salem, Tennessee, which is even closer. And I don't know the city limits of Salem, Tennessee. It looks like it could possibly go into the path of totality. But anyway, it's good to be specific and be as thorough as possible. I still find significance in it. I went through and I found all the cities named Salem in the entire United States. And I don't know. It is interesting, but by my count, there's only, if we're just going by the path of totality, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and possibly 6 if I knew the city limits of Salem, Tennessee. So like 5 for sure. Okay, and then after that, Salem was the biblical name for Jerusalem before King David made it its capital. Abraham visited Melchizedek, the king of Salem. The name Melchizedek, my king is righteousness, hints at a belief in the God of Israel. The path of the upcoming solar eclipse will cross over 7 locations named Nineveh. And I also take a little bit of issue with that because I guess it depends on what you mean by will cross over. If we're talking about the path of totality, not so much. We have Nineveh, Texas, which is down here. It's not in the path of totality, but it's pretty close. Nineveh, Missouri, which is, as you can see, it's like up here. There's Nineveh and Nineveh Township. Nineveh Township is the closest, but St. Louis, Missouri would be closer than Nineveh. Anyway. Nineveh, Ohio. Oh, wait. Nineveh, Indiana, right here, south of Indianapolis. Nineveh, Ohio, right there. Nineveh, Pennsylvania, which is down here. It's pretty far away from the path of totality. Pittsburgh would be closer. Nineveh, Virginia. I mean, that's even further away. And then Nineveh, New York, which is right here. So these are the ones that he lists, and he says, The eclipse was will also cross over a location named Nineveh in the province of Nova Scotia in Canada. So that's over here. And again, it's not in the path of totality. So if you want to broaden the definition, and this is what I've seen some people do, like I got an email saying, this Nineveh will have a 95% of a total eclipse. This location will have an 80%. So if you want to go outside the path of totality, I mean, where are the rules? You can just make, if you feel like that's significant, then it's significant. I tend to stick more with if it's like actually in the path of totality. I feel like that's a little bit more concrete, but I'm not the arbiter of these things. But although it is interesting to note, I did the same thing like I did with the Salems. I looked all over the United States, and the only Ninevehs that I found are over here, and all of them are, if you're looking at the entire United States, they're all relatively close to the path of totality. So yeah, I think there's something to that. Do a search on my channel for Jonah or Nineveh, and I talk about what I think is the symbolism behind all this like Jonah and Nineveh stuff. There's been interesting Jonah signs that happened specifically in 2021. And I think it has to do with this, that Christ said that when the I think it was the Pharisees wanted a sign from him of his divinity, he said the only sign that you're going to get is the sign of Jonah, which of course refers to when Christ was in the spirit world and then after that was resurrected and whatever. That's the only sign that he was going to give them. But if you think about it, sometimes I think we cut it short and we just like stopped the story there. We know that the resurrected Christ is going to come to the Jews in Jerusalem, right? The resurrected Christ who was in the earth or the spirit world for 3 days and then resurrected, coming out just like Jonah. Yeah, he appeared there once, but he's going to appear there again. So I think they are going to get that sign, the sign of Jonah, at the second coming, because we know that there's going to be a mass conversion at that time. They're at least the ones there in Jerusalem. I don't know about Judaism worldwide. I think that there's going to be missionary work that's done, but I think that it's all going to start with him coming to the Jews in Jerusalem. The sign of Jonah, in a sense. I think you could say that. So anyway, that's why I think this Nineveh stuff and Jonah stuff that we've been seeing lately, excuse me, I think that's why that could be important. So again, we have Salem with the 2017 eclipse, right? Thinking of Jerusalem. And then we have Nineveh thinking about the resurrected Christ and him coming to Jerusalem. So that's like one way that you could think about this. All right, let's continue. It is interesting to note that a solar eclipse known as Bor Sagale, I don't know if that's how that's pronounced, eclipse took place on the 15th of June, 763 before Christ, passing over the Assyrian capital city of Nineveh in the middle of the reign of Jeroboam II, who ruled Israel from 786 to 746. According to 2 Kings 14:25, the prophet Jonah lived and prophesied in Jeroboam's reign. The biblical scholar Donald Wiseman has speculated that the eclipse took place around when Jonah arrived in Nineveh and urged the people to repent. So that's kind of interesting. We could maybe liken this to us right now. Maybe this is a sign for the United States to repent. Right? Okay. Sorry. As the son of Zion of Mishkol's Hasidic dynasty and a descendant of King David, Rabbi Yosef Berger circulates among many hidden righteous men and is privy to their thoughts. He emphasized that the eclipse will take place on the first day of the Hebrew month of Nisan, the month in which Jews left Egypt. Right? Is this going to be the day this year that we leave the world? Could it be a day that we get caught up? Could it be, a special day in some other sense? Maybe Adam Dayamin taking place on that day. The beginning of leaving this world leaving behind these 6,000 years and moving into the millennium. So he emphasized that the eclipse will take place on the first day of the Hebrew month of Nisan, the month in which the Jews left Egypt. That right there is noteworthy. Okay. Quote, "It is undeniable that we are on the verge of the final redemption, or what we would call the millennium," Rabbi Berger said. And then he continues, "But most people either don't understand what that means or deny the obvious. Nisan is the first month of the biblical year. All of the Kabbalists and hidden righteous men know that after the beginning of the Hebrew month of Nisan, the entire order of creation will change in preparation for the final redemption. 7 years ago, people scoffed when they said this, but the world has gone through so much, changed so much in that time." Yeah. And I have felt like we have entered a new phase. You know, I feel like let's turn these off for a second. So first we had the 2017 eclipse, right? And yeah, definitely a lot of things happened since that time. And then when we had the 2023 eclipse in October, I think things got even more weird and bizarre and crazy, especially with the war. Excuse me, especially with the war in Israel. We have 2024, which is the biggest year for elections worldwide. 4 billion people live within countries, that's half of humanity, live within countries that are going to have national elections this year. And there's just a whole lot of stuff. So I feel like between that eclipse and the 2024 eclipse, I feel like that was another window of time. So it's like first we have this big period of time where crazy things happen, but then there's like this last part of the window between October 2023 and April 2024. So, okay. Rabbi Berger noted the connection to Nineveh. Quote, "Just as God sent Jonah to warn Nineveh, he is sending this eclipse as a warning to the nations. Just as the people of Nineveh had to repent in a set amount of time, the nations had a limited amount of time to perform acts of repentance." Now, if he's interpreting this correctly, I don't think we've progressed very much, neither in the United States or in the world as a whole. I think we might be in trouble. Okay, towards this end, Rabbi Berger established a charity to give Paidon Nefesh, a donation that redeems the Nefesh or soul. The money becomes an exchange for the life of the person, since money and the Nefesh are one aspect. Okay, whatever. Maybe don't donate to that one, you guys. That sounds a little bit more religious, like as far as like Judaism goes. All right, quote, "Just like the eclipse in 2017 ushered in the COVID pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the horrific attack on Israel and the war on Hamas, this eclipse will mark the beginning of greater changes that will overturn the order of the world. But by the time people realize that the Gula, or redemption, is beginning, it will be too late." Man, you see how they're like thinking about this? Like, it's not just us. It's not just this second coming, this like LDS second coming community. It's not just Christians, the Christians that are into eschatology or study of the last days. It extends to the Jews as well. They're on, they are on alert. I talked to Rabbi Gerfein, and he has said, where is he? He has said that he thinks that it's really close. He says that he feels it. His friends feel it. You know, it is happening. I believe it is happening. Okay, continuing. "It should be remembered that the complete solar eclipse that traversed the continental United States in August 2017 ushered in the most devastating hurricane season in U.S. history. 4 days after the eclipse, Hurricane Harvey made landfall on the Gulf Coast of Texas, the first major hurricane to do so in over a decade. The hurricane resulted in unprecedented flooding that prompted more than 13,000 rescues, displaced more than 30,000 people, and inundated hundreds of thousands of homes. At least 38 confirmed deaths were attributed to the hurricane, and damages were estimated at up to $160 billion. So anyway, I'm really interested in what we read here, especially when it comes to the first of Nisan and how they view that as the day that the redemption from Egypt started. And so now I feel like there's more significance in the fact that the two eclipses cross over a place known as Little Egypt, and it has the Egyptian towns around here that have Egyptian names and stuff like that. But yeah, this is really exciting. It begins the day after conference, right? Preparing to leave Egypt. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.